All right, let's just jump right in. Picture this. It's Friday night. Your phone's blowing up, right? All these notifications. Texts about dinner, invites to some loud party, let's grab drinks. You glance at the screen, and instead of feeling excited, you just feel tired, like deep in your bones tired. The thought of all that small talk, of having to be on, it feels like a second job. So you flip your phone over, face down, and this huge wave of relief just washes over you as you pick up a book. Or, okay, how about this? There's a big group project at work. The first meeting is just a hurricane of buzzwords, synergy, brainstorming, you know the drill. And while everyone's talking over each other, you're just sitting there, quietly doing the math, and realizing how much faster and honestly, how much better you could do the whole thing by yourself.
If either of those scenarios felt a little too real, like less of a story and more like a page out of your own life, then you're probably pretty familiar with the whole idea of the lone wolf. It's a label we hear a lot, right? But today, we're gonna go way, way deeper than just the label. We're not just defining a term. We're gonna really dig into the complex and often really misunderstood psychology behind this powerful drive for independence.
And what's so fascinating is how confused our culture is about the lone wolf. I mean, on one hand, we totally romanticize them in movies and books. You think of someone like John Wick, cool, mysterious, can handle anything on his own. We love that. But then, in real life, the script just completely flips. People with those exact same traits, suddenly they're antisocial, aloof, maybe not a team player. We might even feel sorry for them, thinking they must be lonely, even if they tell us, no, really, I'm fine. But this isn't just some simple personality quirk. It's actually a really complex mix of biology, brain chemistry, and even our childhood experiences. So in this explainer, we're gonna try and understand their world from the inside out. We'll start with what I call the lone wolf paradox. Then we'll get into the actual science of solitude. It's pretty cool. After that, we'll see how this stuff shows up in everyday life. And finally, for anyone who feels like their independence is tipping over into isolation, we'll talk about how to find a little more balance. Okay, first step, the lone wolf paradox. The root of the issue here is this huge, often painful clash. On one side, you have an individual's natural wiring, and on the other, you have how we're built as a species. I mean, we are fundamentally social animals. For thousands and thousands of years, our survival literally depended on being in a tribe. Belonging meant safety and food. Being kicked out was basically a death sentence. So our brains are wired to want social connection. But what happens when someone's brain just doesn't quite fit that ancient mold? Well, you end up with two different kinds of struggles happening at the same time. First, on the left, you've got this constant pressure from the outside world. It's the nagging from friends and family, right? Why are you so quiet? You just need to get out more. At work, maybe they get overlooked for a promotion because they're not seen as a team player, even though their solo work is amazing. And then there's the deeper internal conflict you see on the right. This is the real paradox. Even if they need solitude to function, they're still human. They might crave a deep, meaningful connection with someone, but the actual process of getting there, the small talk, the vulnerability, is so mentally exhausting that they pull back before that connection can ever really happen. It's kind of like being desperately thirsty, but allergic to the act of drinking water. So that leads us to the big question, right? Why? Why does this person's brain seem to prefer the quiet cave over the noisy campfire of social life? And this isn't just a simple preference, like liking one flavor of ice cream over another. There are some really deep biological and psychological reasons going on. To get it, we need to look at three key scientific ideas that really shape this whole profile. So these three pillars are, first, something called the schizoid temperament, and don't worry, we'll explain what that really means. Second, it's about big differences in the brain's reward system, the chemicals that tell us what feels good. And third, it's the huge impact of something called attachment trauma, which often goes all the way back to our earliest days. Let's break these down one by one. All right, first step, schizoid temperament. Now this is so important to get right off the bat. This has absolutely nothing to do with schizophrenia. Zero. We're not talking about psychosis or anything like that. In psychology, schizoid just describes a long-term pattern of being detached from social stuff. The best way to think of it is like supercharged introversion. But here's the key difference. A regular introvert might get drained by a party, but they still want connection and can feel lonely. Someone with a schizoid temperament often just doesn't feel the need for it. Their own inner world of ideas and projects is just way more interesting and rewarding to them. It's not that they're scared of people, it's more like they're just indifferent. So why the indifference? Well, a huge part of it is just basic brain chemistry. For most people, the social brain on the left, a good conversation gives them a nice little hit of dopamine. It feels good. Their brain's threat detector, the amygdala, stays pretty calm. But for the lone wolf brain on the right, that dopamine hit is either super weak or it's not there at all. So socializing feels like all effort and no reward. Instead, their brain might be wired to respond more to a different chemical, acetylcholine, which is all about deep focus and internal thought. They get their feel-good moment from things like reading a book, or coding, or fixing an engine. Plus, their amygdala might be extra sensitive, so even a normal conversation can feel like sensory overload, making them want to retreat just to get some peace and quiet. Now, the third piece of this puzzle, and honestly it can be a really tough one, is attachment trauma. The thing is, many lone wolves aren't born, they're made. If a little kid grows up in a home where their parents or caregivers are emotionally distant or inconsistent or just not there for them, they learn a really powerful lesson deep down. People aren't reliable. The only person I can count on is myself. This builds what's called an avoidant attachment style. The child learns to push down their own needs for comfort and connection just to get by. They become hyper-independent because they have to. And then, as an adult, that defense mechanism, that suit of armor they built as a kid, hardens into what just looks like their personality. It's not a choice anymore. It's a core belief that being alone equals being safe. Okay, so we've talked about the science, the temperament, the brain chemistry, the childhood stuff. Now let's bring it all down to earth. How does this actually look in the real world? At the office, in relationships, just day to day. As we go through these, you might start to see bits of yourself or maybe someone you know. We can kind of boil it down to 3 common types. First, you've got the person at work who seems to just vanish the second the workday is over. We'll call them the workplace ghost. Then there's the person who's great on a first date but pulls away the second things start to get real, the commitment phobe. And finally, you've got the person who would much rather spend a weekend alone, lost in a project, than go to a party, the hobby obsessed. And this table really connects the dots for us. Take the workplace ghost. They skip the happy hour, eat at their desk, but they're probably the most focused and productive person on the team when they're left alone to do their thing. That's the schizoid temperament in action. They value getting the job done well over office chit-chat. Then there's the commitment phobe. As a relationship gets closer, they start to pull back, maybe pick fights, or just disappear. That's a classic sign of avoidant attachment. Their brain's alarm system, wired way back in childhood, starts screaming that closeness is dangerous, so they retreat to safety, which to them means being alone. And finally, the hobby obsessive. That person getting lost in restoring an old car, their brain is getting flooded with that satisfying acetylcholine. That deep focus gives them a sense of accomplishment that a loud, chaotic party just can't touch. So if you're listening to this and a lot of it is hitting home, the big question is, what do you do about it? Do you need to change who you are? And the answer is, not really. I mean, being able to be alone, to think deeply, that's a huge strength in our crazy, noisy world. But if your independence is causing you pain, if you feel lonely behind those high walls, or if you're burning out because you literally never ask for help, then yeah, it might be time to think about finding a healthier balance. And look, this is not about trying to force yourself to be an extrovert. That's just gonna make you miserable. This is about honoring who you are, while also finding ways to connect that feel safe and authentic. We're gonna walk through 4 steps to do just that. First, figuring out the difference between solitude and loneliness. Second, trying something called parallel play. Third, gently challenging the story you tell yourself. And fourth, finding your people, your niche tribe. Okay, so step 1 is all about being really, really honest with yourself. Look at this chart. Solitude on the left is a choice. It's when you're alone and it feels good, peaceful, restorative. It charges your batteries. Loneliness, on the other hand, is a feeling. It's a painful ache for connection that you don't have. It drains your batteries. So if you're truly enjoying your solitude, that's awesome. The goal is just to own it and not let anyone make you feel bad about it. But if, deep down, you know it's actually loneliness you're feeling, then admitting that, just to yourself, with no judgment, is the absolute first step. Step 2 is all about taking baby steps. You don't jump into the deep end. Instead, you can try this thing called parallel play. It basically means being around people without having to directly talk to them. So you could go read a book in a coffee shop, or join a yoga class, or go on a group hike, where most people are just focused on the trail. It lets your nervous system get comfortable with having people around in a way that doesn't feel demanding. It's like a gentle warm-up for your social muscle. Step 3 is huge, especially if your independence comes from that attachment trauma we talked about. The story in your head is probably something like, I can't ask for help, it's weak, it's dangerous, people will let me down. The only way to rewrite that story is to collect new evidence. So you run tiny, low-risk experiments. Ask a coworker to glance at a 1-paragraph email. Ask your neighbor if you can borrow a screwdriver. Just tiny things. And when they help you and nothing bad happens, your brain takes note. Each little experiment starts to chip away at that old armor and teaches you, slowly, that maybe, just maybe, it's safe to rely on people sometimes. And finally, step 4 is about being smart with your social energy. Just stop trying to be the person who loves big parties. It's probably never going to be your thing, and that is 100% okay. Lone wolves do best with quality over quantity. So find your niche tribe. Find a small group of people who are into the same specific thing you are. A book club, a board game group, a coding meetup. When you connect over a shared passion, you get to skip all the horrible small talk and go straight to the deep, interesting conversations you actually enjoy. It's about finding connection, but doing it on your own terms. As we start to wrap up, I want you to really hold on to this idea. I know it can be tough. It can feel like there's something wrong with you in a world that's always telling you to be more social. But the goal here should never be to change your entire personality. You don't have to become a social butterfly. The goal is just to make sure that your cave, your safe space of solitude, has a door, and not just solid walls. It's about having the freedom to go in when you need to recharge, but also having the choice to step out when you want to. And please, remember this. So many of the greatest artists, scientists, and thinkers in history were lone wolves. They needed that quiet time to hear their own thoughts and create things that literally changed the world. Your ability to be on your own, your comfort with silence, your power to focus deeply on one thing, these are not weaknesses. In our loud, distracted world, they are rare and valuable gifts. So, I'll leave you with this last question to think about. When you really consider your own personality, your own brain, and your own life story, are you a lone wolf by nature? Is it just how you're wired? Or did life and its hard lessons make you one? Understanding that difference between nature and nurture is really the key to finding your own unique way to live a balanced and happy life.